Hi everyone, welcome to my new setup. So this is my daughter's room. Like I mentioned in past videos, we were going through a really big renovation. We are doing some more renovating, but for the most part, like the main floor has been changed. And while we were renovating, I moved my bookshelf that was in my room to my daughter's bedroom, and I kind of like it here, and I think I'm gonna leave it here. So yeah, welcome to my video. This is my hair. I just did it. You'll probably see that in a upcoming vlog, and I have my new little headband here that matches with my daughter because I love matching with her, although she hates matching with me. But I am here to show you or share with you my wrap up for the months of June and July. I read a lot in July, but I didn't read a lot in June, so that's why I've decided to put both months together and share my reading wrap up with you. So without further ado, we'll get started. So the first book that I read in the month of June is Sirens and Muses by Antonia Angress. This book follows 4 POVs. 3 of them are students, 1 of them is a teacher. It's set in New England at an elite art school or art university, and it's a very well written book, a really nice book. The first student, Louisa, came from Louisiana. She, I believe, is a transfer student from Louisiana, and she has hopes of furthering her art career. She's very quiet and introverted, and she is roommates with another POV whose name is Karina. She comes from a wealthy, or she was born into a wealthy family, and she has a natural artistic talent, but also she has an advantage in the art industry because her parents have been art collectors for many years. Then there's Preston, point of view of Preston, who is in a relationship with Karina, and he's a very controversial character in the book. He is pretty much challenging the art world or the elite art world in some ways. He's one of those really annoying characters that I was just really annoyed with mostly, and he is especially challenging towards another point of view character whose name is it Robert? Yes, Robert, who is a professor, and he has been an artist for many years, has been in the art industry for a very long time. However, his influence in the art industry has declined over the years, and he is facing a lot of scrutiny, and his past art especially is facing a lot of scrutiny in this time that it's set in 2011. In the background of the story, it's set around the times of Occupy Wall Street, so there's a lot of political unrest that's happening on campus. People are starting to ask questions as to whether art can influence politics, or if politics can influence art. And yeah, there's a lot of questions surrounding that, and the characters pretty much have to navigate themselves within the political strife within the art world as it's changing within 2011. There's also the question of, is art accessible for everybody? Because there's this feeling, especially since it's set at an elite university, specifically an art university for mainly the elite, I would say. Is art accessible for everyone, or is it just for the people at the top? So there's a lot of questions that are going around. There's a lot of navigation that the characters have to go through with not just finding out what kind of artist they are, but finding out who they are themselves and who they want to be and what they want to do with their lives. It's a really well written book. I really enjoyed reading it. It's a very long book. It is a little bit slow paced, but that's what I enjoyed about the book. I think originally I was giving it a 3.5 just because I think I mainly did not like the Preston character. Every time his point of view came up, I was kind of annoyed with it. But in any case, it's good to have all those perspectives, right? And I think I ended up just giving it a 4-star just because I ended up enjoying it a lot more than expected. So yeah, that's Sirens and Muses by Antonia Angress. And yeah, that's what I read in June. Am I recording? Yes, I am. Oh my gosh, that would suck. So the next book that I read in June was Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. And I have to say that I ended up enjoying this a lot more than I expected. I really did my best to take my time with this classic, and I ended up tabbing it a little bit, tabbing and highlighting it. If I could show you what I highlighted. There we go. There's something that I highlighted, which made the experience of reading it much better. It's set in the span of one day, and Mrs. Dalloway is, I can't remember where she starts off going to. Is it like a flower shop? Let me see. I should have taken notes right at that beginning, right? But in any case, she goes out because she wants to prepare for a party that she is going to set, or that she's going to organize for friends, acquaintances, high class people in her community and such. And it's a very interesting book because it's written as stream of consciousness. So it's written as like an attempt to write out the words that come out of our minds. So not out of your mouth, but out of your mind, which was very interesting because it gives you kind of like a deep dive into what the characters were actually thinking. You know, random thoughts, things going on around the city of London. And the city of London definitely plays a big character in this book. It's, I am so sorry for all the noises that are going on around right now. But in any case, it's set after, I want to say World War II? World War I, actually. It's set in a post-World War I London, England, and there's a lot of anxiety that's happening right now. People are anxious. You know, their noises seem to scare people these days because they're not sure exactly what's going on. In one of the scenes, a car like blew up, or like I think like a tire or something went out. Nothing serious, but everyone was shaken up because, you know, the war had just passed and they were just kind of wondering like, well, you know, what's happening? What is that noise? So everybody was kind of on edge. Especially another character who plays a very big role in this book, and his name is Septimus. He was a soldier in World War I, and he experienced seeing or watching the death of one of his friends, and that played a very big part in how he experiences post World War One. He's going through PTSD, which at the time they were calling shell shock. Doctors were kind of deeming his shell shock as something that will pass over time, but not understanding fully that what he's experiencing is post-traumatic stress disorder. Not just seeing his friend, being blown up, but, experiencing the war, being right there on the front lines, essentially. So a lot of the doctors or his main doctor at least, is kind of pushing his feelings aside and just kind of calling it shell shock. And the idea is that Septimus is supposed to kind of go out back into the world and just be a man and just do what you need to do. Like, stop being so stressed. He doesn't have that much money. You have a society that's kind of trying to move on past the war. Many of them who had not experienced the war just as he did. Like, Miss Dalloway didn't experience the war like that, but she's kind of going through some kind of post-traumatic stress herself. She's a woman who is married to Richard Dalloway, married into this rich family, but she's getting older. I don't want to say like a midlife crisis in some ways, but maybe going through some kind of midlife crisis. We don't know what her born last name was. This is her married last name, Dalloway. So, already we don't know who she really is. And, she's a woman. She's living a very lavish lifestyle, married to Richard Dalloway, who's a very wealthy man. And there are things that he wants to tell her that he just can't tell her, or that he feels like he can't tell her because it's not manly enough to tell her. But I'm sure if she heard these things, she would feel better about herself. She's also reminiscing about her past life, her relationships, the relationships that she's had in her past life. One of them in particular with another woman. I forget her name, but it was a very happy time in her life, the relationship that she had with that woman. Now she has a daughter, she's married, and she feels like maybe that was just some kind of fluke or something, but she keeps on reminiscing about it and thinking about this woman who she does end up inviting to the party as well, and who ends up herself having children too. So, both of these women are going through experiences in their lives that are kind of traumatic. And, we get to listen to read / listen to the dialogue that they have in their head with themselves. So yeah, anyways, all that to say that I did end up really enjoying this book. I think I want to say that I gave it a 4. Let me see what I gave it. Yes, I did end up giving it a 4-star. I think I just ended up giving it a 4-star and not a 5 because, there were moments in it where I didn't completely understand exactly what was going on. But, I think if anything, it would probably be a well-deserved reread, if anything. But yeah, that's a 4-star that I gave to Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway. I am trying my hardest to breathe. I get really nervous when I have to, or not have to, because I don't have to do this. I'm pretty much forcing myself to review these books. And although I really liked it, it's so hard for me to figure out how to properly review them without giving away details from the book. This book, clearly I gave away a lot of details, but I think that's fine for a classic. But a lot of the times, my heart is just beating and I'm just like, how do I explain these things? But anyways, I'm gonna do my best. The next book that I read was Hotline by Dimitri Nasrallah. This one is a very good book, a very short book, set in Montreal in the 1990s, which was really just, it was so nice to read a book that was set in Montreal, because every single place that was mentioned in this book, I could see it in my head, which was really, really nice. But this is a really great book. Even if you're not from Montreal, just pick it up. The story follows Muna Haddad, who has escaped a civil war in Lebanon in 1986. So it's set like in the actually late 80s. She has immigrated from Lebanon with her young son. Her husband was, I believe, well, I don't want to give it away, but her husband was kidnapped during the time that they were all going to leave together to come to Canada, and instead it was just the two of them. And they immigrated her specifically to Quebec because, or specifically to Montreal, Quebec, because she was told that she would be able to get a job at a French school as a French teacher because she knows French. However, as soon as she gets here, she has the hardest time to find a teaching job at any French school. She's even tried to find a teaching job at English schools, and they're just not hiring because of her background. So instead, she manages to get a job at a weight loss call center where she has to sell weight loss products to all these people that she calls. It is set around her day-to-day experience living in Montreal, dealing with racism, trying to find a job, trying to be the best mother she can be to her young son, who is very quiet at school and who he himself is going through a little bit of a hard time. And it's such a nice story. It's very short, again, like I said. There's no big like plot line or big ending or anything. It's just literally a simple story about an immigrant who moves to Montreal and her experience as an immigrant living in Montreal. And it gives you such a nice perspective on that experience. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, this is nothing. That's not how I mean it. Not at all. I'm just trying to find the words to explain how I feel. But it's definitely a book worth picking up if you want something quick to read. If you're interested in learning about the immigrant experience, specifically the immigrant experience within Canada and Montreal, Quebec, this would be a really great story to pick up, and that is Hotline by Dimitri Nasrallah. I ended up giving it a 4-star as well, so yeah, this one. It was also longlisted for the Scotiabank Giller Prize. So yeah, that is Hotline by Dimitri Nasrallah. The next book that I read, and I don't have it here because I borrowed it from the library and I had to return it, but the next book that I read, and I'll put it right over here, is When Women Were Dragons. And I really enjoyed this story more than I expected. It's set in 1955 America. It's set during a big moment that they call the mass dragoning of 1955, where hundreds of women turn into dragons and just kind of disappeared. We follow the story of Alex, whose aunt has dragoned and disappeared, and Alex's mother comes back into play after being away for a very long time, sometime at the beginning of the story. Alex also has a young cousin named, I believe her name was Beatrice. Beatrice is Alex's aunt's daughter, And since since the aunt dragoned and disappeared, Alex's parents decide to take in Beatrice. There's a lot of suppression that's going on within the family already. We're also following the perspective of a doctor who is studying why these women have become dragons and where have they gone. Slowly people start to see them a little bit around. There's a lot of secrecy around these female dragons, I guess. The one thing that I really enjoyed about the book is, it's very much commentary about, the silencing of women. We're silencing Alex into believing that her cousin is actually her sister and that her aunt never existed. Their father just does not believe whatsoever that women should have any kind of rights, I guess. His wife, who is very smart, or was very smart, I believe she was like a mathematician. She was offered a scholarship, I think, to go to university. And he doesn't see it as a successful thing. He sees it as if you go to university, what does that do? That you're just taking away space from another guy who could go instead. So that's how Alex's dad sees the world. Alex is also questioning her own sexuality. She was in a relationship with another young girl, and when the dad saw that, he just was like, he literally went crazy. And so you have Alex questioning her sexuality and who she is. And then you also have the relationship she has with her cousin sister, who she's so close with and loves dearly, like she's her own daughter. And to be honest, like I loved Beatrice. Like, she was such a typical little girl. The questions that she was asking, the trouble that she was getting into, like the innocent trouble that she was getting into. She was such like a darling in my eye. Like, when I would read Beatrice's scenes, like I just kind of envisioned my daughter, because she was just like that endearing to me. I just really loved Beatrice. In the end, I think I gave this book, another 4. I don't know, actually. There were some scenes that I don't know. There was something about it that just made me give it a 4 instead of a 5. But in any case, it is a fantasy / magical realist book, which I quite enjoyed. I didn't think that I would enjoy this book about women who turned into dragons, but I did. I actually really did. So yeah, that was When We Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. Yes. The next book, I'll put myself back in the middle. The next book that I ended up reading in the month of July was My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, and I really enjoyed this book. It was so good. It definitely has like a little bit of that 90s nostalgic kind of mood. I'm pretty sure it's set like in the 90s or 80s. I don't recall. But in any case, it follows Abby and Gretchen and their friendship. They have pretty much, I don't want to say grown up together, because they kind of met like, I guess, around like elementary school. And as soon as they met, they became instant best friends. And as they grew up, they stayed close to each other. Abby would oftentimes stay at Gretchen's house, like to a point where I think like Abby was pretty much like, she was literally living there, because we don't hear so much at the beginning, at least. We don't see her at her house too much. We don't see Abby at her house too much at the beginning. But as they grew up, they added 2 more best friends to their group, and they all end up going to a lake house one day. And at the lake house, something weird happens, and Gretchen has changed. And it's pretty much because there's a demon inside of Gretchen, and Abby is desperate to get that demon out of her best friend. It challenges her friendship, and she starts to wonder, how deep, how strong is their friendship? How far is she willing to go to save her best friend? Because everyone else around her is kind of giving up on Gretchen, giving up on Abby herself. As everything around Abby specifically starts to, fall apart, it becomes a challenge to try to save Gretchen. And, she wonders how strong is their friendship? How far is she willing to go to save her best friend? And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. It was really cool. It was a really cool book. I had never read a book like this before. And, it was dark, but funny at the same time. It wasn't just dark in terms of like scenes, but it was dark also in terms of, the deep bonds that Abby and Gretchen have with each other, or have for each other. You really, really experienced, or somehow experienced, Abby's deep bond with Gretchen. You saw how far she was willing to go to save her best friend, and she wasn't going to stop at anything, which was really nice, really great. It was so 90s, so nostalgic. So yeah, I really enjoyed the vibes of this book. There was also a movie on Amazon Prime, I believe, and I watched the movie right after reading this book, and obviously the book is better. If you watch the movie instead, or if you watch the movie first, you definitely won't understand the deep bonds that Abby and Gretchen have with each other, and you won't understand like the context of some of the scenes that are happening. So the only reason that I kind of enjoyed the movie was because I understood it in the context of the book. So yeah, but anyways, this is My Best Friend's Exorcism, which I ended up giving 5 stars. So yeah, My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. The next book that I read was Daphne by Josh Malerman, and I ended up talking a little bit about it in my reading vlog, my Summerween reading vlog. And although I enjoyed this book throughout, like from beginning to almost the end is what just kind of, it wasn't a very good ending for me. This book is, again, I think this one, oh my gosh, I don't know what dates these books are set in. I mentioned in my reading vlog that this gave me nostalgic vibes, and I think the only reason it gave me nostalgic vibes was because I used to play basketball, so I kind of related to the basketball community, I guess. So this book is set in a town called Samhattan. We're following a girls basketball team. They have just found out this spooky story from one of their teammates. A spooky story about Daphne, this young woman who was murdered in her car, now haunts the town. Now, Daphne only comes out when you think about her. Now, because they were told this story, now they can't stop thinking about her. And slowly, players start to get murdered. It is a story about manifestation. The more you think about Daphne, the more likely she will appear. The story also not even touches, but the story is also about anxiety. The anxiety that I felt when I was reading this book was definitely there, but there was anxiety within the town itself. They had suppressed the memory of Daphne for so long, and they had forcibly suppressed the memory of Daphne for so long that now they know that if they think about her, that she will come and that she will likely hurt them. And so they're trying their best to suppress those memories. But how do you suppress something that you can't stop thinking about? And that created a lot of anxiety for those townspeople. This story in some ways is maybe even about, silence and, silencing, not talking about our feelings, not talking about our experiences. What Daphne did when she was alive, what she did was really, really bad. And then what people had done to her was also very, very bad. Her being bullied for being tall, being introverted and such. But then she went ahead and she did some kind of questionable things, which is very worrying and that people didn't really talk about. So, there's topics, commentary on that as well. The ending didn't do it for me. I didn't like how they got rid of Daphne. Like, the explanation as to how to get rid of Daphne didn't do it for me. And it happened so quickly that I was like, oh, okay. And to be honest, I also wanted to know more about Daphne, although, we did kind of get to know her through the stories that were told by people. I was kind of hoping that we would get more of a deep dive into that. I was also hoping that we get more of a deep dive into the detective who was investigating all of the murders that were going on. We didn't get much of a deep dive into who she was. My understanding, I'm pretty sure, was that she was transferred to this precinct in a small town. And to me, that means, okay, well, if you're transferred to another precinct in a small town, that meant that you probably did there's some story there that I want to know about, and I don't think that was in there. I don't know, did I miss it? I don't know, let me know in the comments. But in any case, I think I ended up giving this book 3.5. Let me check. Yes, I did end up giving this book a 3.5 only because the ending just did not do it for me. The ending, it happened too fast. The way they got rid of Daphne was just way too simple, and it just literally made no sense to me. But in any case, I could definitely, this was my first slasher horror book. It definitely made me scared, which I've said in the past that books don't make me scared, but that's a lie because this did make me scared. And I'll slowly get myself into more horror slasher if I feel like it. Read with caution. There are some triggering moments in there that may be upsetting for some readers, so please proceed with caution when you read this book. So that is Daphne by Josh Malerman. The next book that I read this month was Bee Planet, Volume 2, and I did mention this in my Summerween reading vlog as well. And I also have to mention that in my Summerween reading vlog, I said I'm really excited to read Volume 3. There is no Volume 3. And I am really upset because I'm pretty sure this left off on a cliffhanger. Yeah, that's a cliffhanger. I don't even know what this third book is, but I literally thought that it was Volume 3. And instead, I think it's just like a collection of 1 and 2. I was literally reading the issues as volumes. So I thought there were 10 volumes. There are 10 issues and 2 volumes. So I'm kind of upset that there's no volume 3 and I won't be able to continue Bee Planet. What am I supposed to do? But anyways, it's still a very good book, very good comic book, a short one as well if you're interested. I find that comic books, especially if I'm going through a reading slump, comic books just put me back into the reading mood, and I really enjoyed it, although it's finished. It's pretty much about these women who are deemed non-compliant by society are sent to an external planet called Bee Planet, and actually it's a jail planet. Actually, it's like a prison planet, and it's called Bee Planet. And volume 2 pretty much follows how somebody has set them free, and they're set free within the prison planet and are trying to escape, essentially. And that's kind of how it ends, which really sucks. I don't know how else to explain this because I was so excited to move on and read more. Let me know if you read Bee Planet, what you think, if you want to see a volume 3 like I do. And let me know if there are any other comic books that won't disappoint me at the end by finishing just like that. But anyways, that's Bee Planet, Volume 2 by Kelly Sue DeConnick. The next book that I read this month was Bunny by Mona Awad, and I loved this book. It's literally all over like TikTok and Instagram and everywhere. Essentially, a lot of people have read it and loved it. I definitely loved it. I ended up giving it a 5-star. The story follows Samantha, who goes to another elite university where there is a group of women who call themselves Bunny. They've kind of created this cult-like friendship for themselves. Samantha and her friend, I believe Ava? Yeah, Samantha and her friend Ava have always been the outsiders and have always made fun of these women who call themselves Bunny, until one day Samantha is sent a letter by the bunnies and is invited to become one of them. We see Samantha getting highly influenced by these women immediately. Like there's no stopping her. She's highly influenced by these women. We also find out why she has become highly influenced, and you know, maybe why Ava hasn't. And it's just such a good book. It's well written, it's fun, it's fast, it's gory. Trigger warning for animal cruelty. If anybody doesn't like that, please be careful, and other trigger warnings for other stuff as well. Yeah, this was a very good book. I gave it a 5-star. I really loved it. I like Mona Awad's writing. I read All's Well. I'm very excited to read her upcoming book. I can't remember the title, but I'll put it up here somewhere. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I'm not going to say much about it because I'm pretty sure you all know what it is and you read it before I did. So yeah, that's Bunny by Mona Awad. And the last book that I read this month was The Annual Migration of Clouds by Premee Mohamed. I ended up giving it a 5-star. I was thinking about giving it a 4 only because like it's a very short book and I wanted more, but I was okay with just giving it a 5 and calling it a day because it was still a very good story. It follows a young woman named Reed, and it's set during a post-apocalyptic time. There are food shortages, and industry has ended, and climate disasters have wrecked the continent. Reed lives within this small or somewhat small community that she hasn't left until one day she is sent a letter that she has been accepted to go to this university that is far away from the community, and there are some who are very happy that she has been accepted, and then there are others like her mother who just don't want her to leave whatsoever. It's very dangerous outside of the community. Animals have kind of taken over. Animals that, like dogs and pigs, have taken over, so you have to be very careful when you're going out of the community and, you know, kind of like into the wild. In addition to the end of the world, there is also a mysterious fungi that is being spread and invading people's bodies, and Reed is one of those people that has this fungus, and depending on who you are, you might die from the fungus right away, or your body might react to it very differently. And this fungus reacts very differently to Reed. She hasn't died from it. People around her, there have been people who have died from it, but then there are other people who experience, it's kind of like, it's weird because it's kind of like this fungus kind of acts like something in your head that's talking to you. That's how Reed experiences it. Like whenever she comes up against something challenging or something like a fight or flight situation, this fungus in her head would talk to her and she would have to talk it down, kind of thing. So that's how the fungus works for her and a few others, I believe. But yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really good book. It's very short, and there is an audiobook for it if you're interested. The audiobook was an easy listen, and the book is a pretty fast read, and it's a dystopic set in a post-apocalyptic world. It's adventurous in some ways. I'm hoping maybe there will be a second book. That would be really interesting, because it would be really interesting to find out more about what this university is, to be honest. So yeah, but yeah, that is The Annual Migration of Clouds by Premee Mohamed. Oh, and I gave, what did I give? Did I say what I gave this book? I gave it 5 stars. I did give it 5 stars. So yes, we have come to the end. My battery is about to die. I hope I didn't give away too much. I find that I have a really hard time sometimes talking to the camera. My heart is like beating and I can't breathe because I'm like, how do I review these books? Like, how do I say that I like something without giving things away, you know, finding my words, you know, I have my computer here, you know, just in case. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this. What is it again? Oh yeah, my June. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up, my June-July wrap up, and let me know down below if you've read any of these books, what you think of them. Make sure to give this video a like if you want to see more, and I will see you in another video. Bye.